Greetings, everyone. Welcome back. And you can turn to page 420 in your textbooks if you have that available. And that will take you to the Immaculate Mosque in Cordoba, Spain. A mosque that looks on the outside like so much Muslim architecture, grand and splendid. However, I'm at best in a small minority, in this opinion. Maybe I'm the only person in the world who feels this way. That I think it's a little ostentatious. The inside of the mosque, right? The inside of the mosque, certainly for my tastes. But trashing art is a subject for my one of my live humanities classes, so I'll stop at that. We're going to be traveling to Western Europe, the Middle East, and back to China again during this chapter. I should say with China once again, right? We've been there several times, but like so many phenomena, it's not from without that entities fall or crack, but from within. And in this section, we're going to see Christianity undergo a split, and we're going to look at the origins of Islam, but also a splintering of that universal religion as well. Christianity's interesting in that, and we talked about this before, it's very embryonic stages with the massive empire crumbling and very powerful entities looking to stamp it out. It doesn't, it survives, and right, Constantine has his vision, legalizes Christianity, right? And as Christians, you can only think, there was something providential going on here that causes the existence of it. But gradually over time, again, like I said, like so many entities, problems come from within, right? That you have to worry about. Let's take a look at objectives and get a little more background on this. And here we go. In this chapter, we want to describe and explain the spread of Islam, Buddhism, and Christianity from 600 AD to about 1000. We want to compare the organizational structures of the Abbasids, Tang China, and Christendom, and we want to compare the internal divisions within the Islamic, Tang, and Christian worlds. We also want to evaluate the relationships between religion, empire, and commercial exchange from across Afro-Eurasia during this period. Just a little background here before we get going. The universalizing religion of Islam, based on the message of the Prophet Muhammad, originates on the Arabian Peninsula, and it spreads rapidly across Afro-Eurasia. The expanding Tang dynasty in East Asia, that consolidates its bureaucracy and struggles with religious pluralism and extends its influence into Korea and Japan as well. And then Christianity splits over religious and political differences, leading to a divide between the Roman Catholicism in the West and Greek Orthodoxy in the East. Major heads up terms here for this chapter, the 5 pillars of Islam. I'll break this down when we get there, but it's basically the 5 practices that unite all Muslims. The caliphate, in the last 10 years, we've heard about that, with, the ISIS crusades. And it's basically an Islamic state headed by a caliph chosen by election from the community, the Sunni community, of the lineage of Muhammad, the Shiite viewpoint, with political authority over the the entire Muslim community. Sharia, this is the body of Islamic law that has developed over the centuries. It's based on the Quran and the saying of Muhammad. And you can read about that also in the Hadith and the legal opinions of Muslim scholars, otherwise known as the ulama. The Sunnis and the Shiites. Sunnis, this is the majority sect within modern Islam that follows a line of political secession from Muhammad through the four caliphs, Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, to the Umayyads and beyond, with caliphs chosen by election from the Ummah, not from Muhammad's direct lineage. The Shiites, they are the minority tradition within modern Islam, and that traces political secession through the lineage of Muhammad and breaks with Sunni understandings of secession at the death of Ali, the cousin and son-in-law of Muhammad and fourth caliph. That happened in 661 AD. Civil service examinations, set of challenging exams instituted by the Tang dynasty to help assess potential bureaucrats and their literary skill and knowledge of the Confucian classics. Eunuchs, these are surgically, I'm not making this up, castrated men who rose to high levels of military, political, and personal power in several empires. For instance, the Tang and the Ming empires in China, the Abbasid and Ottoman empires in the Muslim world, and the Byzantine Empire in the Roman world. Monasticism, from the Greek word monos, meaning alone. The practice of living without the ties of marriage or family, forsaking earthly luxuries for a life of prayer and study. While Christian monasticism originated in Egypt, a variant of ascetic life has long been practiced in Buddhism. Then the Vikings, warrior group from Scandinavia that used its fighting skills and sophisticated ships to raid and trade deep into Eastern Europe, southward into the Mediterranean, and westward to Iceland, Greenland, and North America. Greek Orthodoxy, this is a branch of Eastern Christianity originally centered in Constantinople that emphasized the role of Jesus in helping humans achieve union with God. And then Roman Catholicism, Western European Christianity, centering on the papacy in Rome, that emphasized the atoning power of Jesus's death and aims to expand as far as possible. Okay, hello. So let's take a look at the breakdown of all this. And let's see here. Here we go. The origins and the spread of Islam. See what maps we're going to need here. Okay, good. All right, so the origin and the spread of Islam. Islam began on the Arabian Peninsula. And I'm thinking here, let's turn to map 9-1. We're on page 430 and 431. Okay, we love our visuals here. Islam begins in Arabia, 6th century AD. Mecca was home to a revered sanctuary called the Kaaba. And a vision, a text, and a new community emerges there. So born in Mecca in 570 AD into a well-respected tribal family, Muhammad enjoyed only limited financial success as a trader. Then came a revelation that would convert this merchant into a proselytizer of a new faith. So in 610 AD, while 40 years of age, on a month-long spiritual retreat in a cave near Mecca, he believed that God came to him in a vision and commanded him to recite a series of revelations. In 622, Muhammad and a small group of followers, opposed by Mecca's leaders because of their radical religious beliefs and their challenge to the ruling elite's authority, escaped to Yathrib, later named Medina. And the perilous 200-mile journey, also known as the Hijra, meaning breaking off relations or a departure, yields a new form of communal unity, the Ummah, or the Band of the Faithful. So significant was this moment that Muslims date the beginning of the Muslim era from this year. And on page 424, you see the Mecca there and the great mosque at Mecca, a tremendous mosque. Now, over time, the core practices and beliefs of every Muslim would crystallize as the 5 pillars of Islam. So with the 5 pillars, Muslims were expected to, 1, proclaim the phrase, there is no God but God and Muhammad and his prophet. 2, pray 5 times daily, facing Mecca. 3, fast from sunup until sundown during the month of Ramadan. 4, travel on a pilgrimage or a Hajj to Mecca at least once in a lifetime if their personal resources permitted. And 5, paying alms in the form of taxation that would alleviate the hardships of the poor. Muhammad's successors in the expanding Dar al-Islam. Muhammad dies in 632. His inspiration and early leaders keep the faith going. And then there are military conquests, the jihad against the unbelievers. And probably should be said here at this time, although a religious man, Muhammad was a military man as well. Sometimes doesn't get talked about enough. I mean, with all the hysteria sometimes circling around Islam, Muslims, and the Arab world, right? The politics. Islamic expansion. Within 15 years, Muslim armies controlled Syria, Egypt, and Iraq. Ali, the last of the, quote, rightly guided caliphs, was killed in 661. Some difficulties in documentation. The only Muslim source that we have on Muhammad and early Islam is the Quran itself. The Abbasid revolution. The Abbasid family formed a coalition and overthrew the Umayyad ruler in 750 AD. Capital shifted back to Baghdad, modern-day Iraq. Islam's appeal, practical reasons, reduced taxes, power, the appeal of the message. It endorses community, clear laws, and became a faith with a universalizing message and appeal. The Caliph and the Caliphate. Caliphate is the line of political rulers reaching back to Muhammad. Although the caliphs exercised political authority over the Muslim community, They were not understood to have inherited Muhammad's prophetic powers or any authority in religious doctrine. So that power was reserved for religious scholars called the ulama. Sharia law, Islamic law. Islamic law, or the Sharia, began to take shape in this Abbasid period. So the work of generations of religious scholars, the Sharia, covers all aspects of practical and spiritual life, providing legal principles for marriage contracts, trade regulations, and religious prescriptions, such as prayer, pilgrimage rites, and ritual fasting. And you can look at your map there on page 430, 431, spread of Islam during the first millennium. In addition to Muhammad's sayings and actions as written in later reports, the Hadith provided all the legal guidance that Islamic judges needed. And this shift gave the ulama, Muslim scholars, a central place in Islam, since only their spiritual authority and not political authority of the caliphs was qualified to define religious law. Let's say just something about the Hadith. The Hadith, that is what the majority of your Muslims read today, the Hadith. Surprisingly, not so much the Quran. It's the Hadith. And the Hadith is basically, for lack of a better way to say this, they're like commentaries on what Muhammad said, right? Explaining what Muhammad said. And so a lot of the interpretations today by Muslims around the world is taken from the Hadith, whether it's, on, the relationship in their community to, how to view the holy jihad. That's predominantly coming from interpretations of the Hadith. Just kind of a important FYI there that a lot of folks don't know about. There's gender in early Islam. Pre-Islamic Arabia was one of the last regions that had not become fully patriarchal. Men still married in women's tribes and moved to wives' locations in tribal communities, while women engaged in a variety of occupations and could amass wealth. Muhammad's evolving relations to women reflected larger trends in the influence of patriarchy that made its way to Arabia. Wives after his first had to be veiled. And so by the time Islam spread to Southwest Asia, North Africa, strict gender rules existed. Women were subordinated to men. Men could divorce freely, women could not. Men could take 4 wives and concubines. Women could not practice polygamy. Elite women were veiled and lived secluded from male society. The Quran did offer women the same protections. The blossoming of Abbasid culture, the Muslim world absorbed scientific breakthroughs from China and other areas. Muslims incorporated the use of paper from China, adopted siege warfare from China and the Byzantine Empire, and assimilated knowledge of plants from the ancient Greeks. From Indian sources, scholars borrowed a numbering system based on the concept of 0 and units of 10, what we today call Arabic numerals. Arab mathematicians were pioneers in arithmetic, geometry, algebra, trigonometry. since much of Greek science had been lost in the West and later reintroduced via the Muslim world, the Islamic contribution to the West was of immense significance. So thus, this intense borrowing, translating, storing, and diffusing of ideas ends up actually bringing the world together. You look at map 9.2. As we turn to looking at Islam in a wider world. So trade in, oh, I know what I want to do. I'm going to back up here. I was trashing, starting to trash the Great Mosque at Cordoba, and page 435, there's the inside of Cordoba again, which I don't like, but there's, in defense to this and to balance this out, there is the mosque from the outside. And I'll tell you, the Muslim architecture, the cosmetics on the outside are really second to none, I think, in so many ways. But there's the outside of that great mosque of Cordoba. And despite the inside of Cordoba, that I'm sure is probably appealing to just about every one of you that are looking at it right now. But despite all that, if I ever take a trip down to, that part of Europe, I will definitely not only hit Cordoba, but I will go inside as well. Trade in sub-Saharan Africa, and you can look at page 9.3 now, is Islamic trade. The most celebrated trade was in Ghana. Which lay at the kind of the terminus of North Africa's trading routes, and was often hailed in Arab sources for its gold, as well as its pomp and its power. The Green Revolution in the Islamic world. The Green Revolution, new crops, especially food crops, leaped across political and cultural borders during this period, offering expanding populations, more diverse and nutritious diets, and the ability to feed increased numbers of folks. Most of these crops originated in Southeast Asia, made their way to India, and then dispersed throughout the Muslim world and into China. So they included new strains of rice, taro, sour oranges, lemons, limes, and most likely coconut palm trees, sugarcane, bananas, plantains, and mangoes. Sorghum and possibly cotton and watermelons arrived from Africa at this time as well. A lot of good stuff there. Thinking the only thing I would keep out of my diet would be bananas. So if you ever have me over, don't offer bananas. Figure 9.4, map 9.4, 9.4 on page 438. And start taking a look at opposition within Islam, and with Fatimids and Sunnis and Shiites again. Sunnis, from the Arabic word meaning tradition, accepted that the political succession from the Prophet to the four rightly guided caliphs, and then to the Umayyads and Abbasid dynasties was the correct one. The vast majority of Muslims today are Sunni. The Shiites, members of the party of Ali, felt that the proper successor should have been Ali, who had married the Prophet's daughter, Fatima, and then his descendants. The Fatimids, let's take a look at them here. They were repressed in what is present-day Iraq and Iran. Shiite activists made their way to North Africa, where they joined with dissident Berber groups to topple several rulers. In 909 AD, the Shiite religious and military leader Abu Abdallah overthrew the Sunni ruler there. Thus began the Fatimid regime. The Berbers, I'll just say one thing about them. They were maybe the earliest Christian group, the group that was Christianized in North Africa. Today, we're talking about modern day Morocco, the deserts of Morocco, and fairly suppressed as a culture. Like its rival in this part of the world, Christianity aspired to universality as well, but unlike Christianity, it was linked from Islam was linked from its outset to political power. So after Eurasia's cultural zones began to compete in terms of religious and cultural doctrines, Islam challenged Christian frontiers and slowed its spread. Buddhism challenges what we're going to look at next, the Tang ruling elite, and the Islamic Abbasid Empire pushed back Tang Empire borders as well. The Tang state, again, some more, page 440. At the top of the page there, some pictures. It's just some gorgeous mosques again, especially the mosque on the right. That's in Cairo, Egypt. I just love the dome structures, I think, with the Islamic architecture. But the Tang state, the territorial expansion under the Tang dynasty, toward these efforts, the Tang built a military organization of aristocratic cavalry and peasant soldiers. Tang's frontier armies increasingly relied on pastoral nomadic soldiers from the inner Eurasian steppe. Notable were the Uyghurs these were Turkish-speaking peoples who had moved into Western China by 750 AD. And they basically constituted the empire's most potent military force. You can take a look at map 9.5. And once the Tang administrators brought South China's rich farmlands under cultivation, and they did this by draining swamps, building an intricate network of canals and channels and connecting lakes and rivers to the rice lands, the state was able to collect taxes from roughly 10 million families, representing 57 million individuals. Tang state also introduced the world's first fully written civil service examinations, which tested sophisticated literary skills and knowledge of the Confucian classics. The Tang also allowed the use of Taoist classics too as texts for the exams, believing that the early Taoists represented another important stream of ancient wisdom. China's first female emperor. So obviously, right, not all Tang power brokers were men. The most striking example is Empress Wu. She was witty, intelligent, and beautiful. Wu was recruited actually before she was a teenager to Li Shimin's court and became his favorite concubine. So when Li Shimin died, his son assumed power and became Emperor Jiaozong. Wu became the new emperor's favorite concubine and gave birth to the sons he required to succeed him. So as the mother of the future emperor, Empress Wu enjoyed heightened political power. Now, following the emperor's death, Wu made herself empress. Okay, from 1684 to 705 AD, so for 19 or 21 years. She expanded the military and recruited her administrators from these civil examinations that I talked about, and candidates that would be able to oppose her enemies at the court. Mentioned the eunuchs earlier. Well, I mentioned a lot of things earlier, but I mentioned the eunuchs and said I wasn't making anything up about the eunuchs. The Tang rulers protected themselves, their possessions, and especially their women with loyal and well-compensated eunuchs. And then the men, these were men who were surgically castrated as youths to, and thus made them sexually impotent, obviously. So by the late 8th century AD, more than 4,500 eunuchs were fully entrenched in the Tang Empire's institutions, wielding significant power, not only within the empire and imperial household, but at the court and beyond. So the chief eunuch would control the military as well. So accommodating world religions. Overall, there was early Tang emperors tolerated remarkable religious diversity. As Buddhism began to grow, though, there were anti-Buddhist campaigns in Tang. Tang interactions with Korea and Japan. You could just take, I'm not going to dwell on this. You can turn to page 9 or 449, look at map 9.6. I'll say this too. I will say this, and this might turn up on the review quiz while you're looking at that map. After about 587, the Soga kinship group, originally from Korea. I'm trying to think if your map highlights them. It really doesn't, but originally from Korea, but by 500 AD, it was a minor branch of the Yamato imperial family, and that becomes Japan's leading family, which controls the Japanese court through intermarriage. And I don't see it on the map there either, but nevertheless, soon they were attributing their cultural innovations to their own Prince Shotoka of Soga and of Yamato descent. Shotokyu, I think they say it. Then you have the fall of the Tang Empire. The emergence of European Christendom. Christianity, rather than political empire, increasingly unified the peoples of Europe, Western Roman Catholic Church, and Eastern Greek Orthodoxy. Charlemagne and his fledgling empire. You can turn to map 9.7 on page 453, which would be beneficial at this juncture. And when you're done looking at that, you can go to page 454 and look at scenes from the life of Charlemagne and the cathedral, the Cathedral of Chartres in France. And you start to see there the beginning of the stained glass windows and colored lights. Abbasids, and I believe he was either at that monastery there in Chartres or Saint Denis. These were spearheaded by him. The stained glass windows and colored light was designed to reflect God's light, right? God's word, God's truth shining in. Kind of a cool idea, whether you're a Christian or not. But Charlemagne was looking also around this time to, he was a military guy too, but he was looking at education. He develops Aachen in north central, it would be modern day Germany, as a kind of a educational headquarter. And then, so Christianity in Western Europe. Christianity in Western Europe, and page 455, you can see Charlemagne's palace and you know, like a model of that in chapel. Okay. I have a feeling that some of you are looking at that model and thinking that you wished you'd had that as a Lego pieces when you were little boys or little girls. Nevertheless, Christian monasticism, right, had originated in Egypt, but it suited well the missionary tendencies of Christianity in Northern Europe. So the root of this quote monastic and quote monk is the Greek monos, alone. A monastic was a man or a woman who chose to live alone with the support of, without the support of marriage or family. So monasticism appealed to a deep sense that the very men and women who had little in common with ordinary people were best suited to mediate between believers and God. So by the 9th century, and you can look at page 456, by the 9th century, this picture had changed. Believers from the distant north saw only one papa left in Western Europe, and that would be Rome's Pope, right? New Christians in the northern borderlands wanted to find a religious leader for their hopes, and the Catholic Church of Western Europe united behind the symbolic center of Rome and its popes. I'll say this too about the monasteries. The monasteries were huge when it comes to when it came to developing the arts, especially music. You're starting off with the Gregorian chants there. You go to Gregorian chants to organums and madrigals, and you know, if you listen to that music, begins at the School of Notre Dame, right? The you know, and yeah, spreads to the monasteries, and really a cool. If you're looking at humanities, a cool study on yeah, the musical arts, and gradually how, you know, lyrics and biblical scriptures and poems are put to that music. Lastly, Christianity in the lives of the Vikings. Turn to map 9-8. Where do I go here? Yeah, the Vikings, their motives were announced in their name, which derives from the Old Norse Vik, and that means to be on the warpath. And the Vikings sought to loot the now wealthy Franks and replace them as the dominant warrior class of Northern Europe. And they succeeded in their plundering and enslaving because of a deadly technological advantage, that being the ships of unparalleled sophistication at the, you know, that for that time. So light and agile, the Viking ships traveled far up the rivers of Northern Europe and could even be carried overland from one river system to another. So under sail, the same boats could tackle open water and then cross the North Atlantic. So not a lot of relationship there. toward Christendom. They do reach North America in 982, create new trade routes through the Baltic region. They do try to take the Byzantine Empire, but they fail. The church splits, right? You got Greek Orthodox Christianity. Greek Orthodoxy is Greek Orthodox theology held that Jesus became human less to atone for humanity's sins, as emphasized in Roman Catholicism, and more to facilitate transformation of humans into divine beings. This was a truly distinct message from that which prevailed in the Roman Catholicism in the West. Now, in the year 1000 AD, then there were two Christianities. You had the new and the confident borderland Roman Catholicism of Western Europe and an ancient Greek Orthodoxy. Okay, and there you have it. All right. Now, where do we go next here? We go to what's up ahead. And we have some new wrinkles that I need to talk about. Yeah, some of the old drills there, you have it as you read. The videos, I've got two of them, Early Religious Divisions and the Vikings. And I had said last time that not enough people were citing the videos. I was thinking probably weren't watching them. I'm like, there's just two or three of them, and they're only a couple of minutes. And lo and behold, a couple of you did cite them the last time out, and I was so totally thrilled about that, and I noted so, and in your on your grades. Slipping my mind right now what I was responding to. Graphic organizers, you have that. You can take a look at that, and we won't recap on that today. Friday, the initial post is due. Sunday, you have two responses that are due, right? You guys know that. Because this week's a longer week, we're moving into Monday and Tuesday. I had to do something with those 2 days. I felt that it was better to just conclude Monday and Tuesday with the previous week than to start something new and then have a 5-day break. So that's what we're going to do. And Monday, you'll have your review quiz, right? Monday will be the review quiz. And I think I'll have that open Monday and Tuesday. It'll be open Monday and Tuesday. And then by Wednesday, you'll be able to see your grades. Now, when we reconvene on the 29th, we're going to begin chapter 10, Becoming the World. And this will be the next to last chapter that we are going to cover. And then I'm thinking, we're, a month. No, we're not even, we're several weeks out yet, but I'm thinking that the term paper on December 5th should be talked about. And I want to say this too. I should probably have this in the announcements. I do have the Chicago style guidelines that the department is requiring. So be careful to look at that, the Chicago style guidelines. I'll get that posted for you. And then test 3, our last test, is or the last test that you have to take is Monday, the 6th. And then I will let you guys, I'll let everyone know around that time who's exempt from the final, right? If you look at your syllabus, I had said that, if you have a certain baseline in the 90s, you would not have to take the exam. And I'll let you know as soon as I have that data available. So, all right. Well, you guys have a great Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you next time. All right. Bye-bye.